Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2. Today I wanted to make a quick video for you fellow ball enjoyers out there, pretty much just updating you on how you want to incorporate the new Tal Rasha's ring that drops off of Varshan into your build, which things you may want to swap out, and how to best actually take advantage of this. There's also a bug that I wanted to make a separate video on, but I feel like may as well just slam it into this video. There's a bug that's going to increase your damage by well over 20%, so if you're interested, feel free to just stick around till the end of the video. This isn't going to be a full build video, I'm just going to go over how you want to incorporate this, etc. If you want a full build video, feel free to just look at the link in the description. I'll have a link to the previous video that I already made and is uploaded, and also a build planner. Keep in mind the build planner has like 4 or 5 different versions on it, so make sure to select the version that is most fitting for you. But let's just get into it. The ring drops off of Echo Varshan, pretty easy to farm out. Luckily it has some really good stats, unlike some of the other rings. Like the Necromancer ring has some pretty garbage stats, but this is really good. The only thing that we're really missing out on is like crit chance. The lucky hit chance is pretty irrelevant for a ball lightning build, but getting non-physical damage is good because it's just straight up damage, but also 10% of that gets converted into multiplicative damage when you take the Frigid Fate legendary paragon node. So if you get a max roll of this, that goes up to nearly 4% multiplicative damage, which is pretty nice. Resource gen is great, so to scale up how much mana we get from things like recharging loop, etc. And then cooldown reduction is amazing. 10% CDR on this is really nice, especially for me because I like spamming my teleport so much. So getting the 10% CDR there is fantastic. But the main benefit of using this is the unique effect, which is for each type of elemental damage you deal, you gain up to 15% increased damage for 4 seconds. And if you deal any amount of elemental damage at all, it will just reset this bonus. It's very easy to take advantage of this. You can get pretty much on any build, it should be pretty easy to take advantage of 4 stacks of elemental damage, so 60% increased damage, which is roughly like double the value almost of almost all of the other legendaries that you're using on the build. So this is definitely a must-have for pretty much any sorcerer build, I would imagine, because 60% increased damage as well as cooldown reduction and resource gen is very good, and it's pretty easy to supplement the loss of the critical hit chance if you just use the elementalist aspect. So real quick, let's talk about how you actually want to proc this. So as far as I'm concerned, there's only 4 different elemental damage bonuses that you can get on Sorcerer. You may be able to get shadow damage somehow. I've tried physical damage, it doesn't seem to work, but 4 stacks should be more than enough, and it should be very easy to proc. I don't know how you're going to proc shadow damage. Any nerds that are sorcerers, feel free to just leave it down in the comments if there's a way to, but for the purposes of Ball Lightning, you always get 1 stack as a result of just using Ball Lightning. And then you can get a second stack just by using Flame Shield, which you'll have on all the time, as long as you just make sure to actually run into an enemy. So you run into them, and then that's going to apply a stack. And then as well as Ball Lightning, you have 2. As you can see, though, I am at 3 stacks right now, and that's because I also paired this with the Vampiric Power Infection, which does poisoning damage. Because Ball Lightning does so many instances of damage per second, you'll pretty much have permanent uptime on this. So that is an additional stack, which you can lose for this. It really just depends on how you want to set it up, like what you're doing. If you're doing tier 100s, I like to have Undying, but if you're doing like really easy content, the healing from this is very insignificant. You could decide to lose Domination because this is a conditional effect upon the mobs being crowd controlled, so if you wanted just more damage all the time, you could use Infection. I took out Sanguine Brace, which I like to use for survivability when I'm doing higher Nightmare dungeons, just to get 10% DR from the Fortify, but also the 6% or 8% crit chance when it's maxed out isn't too bad either. But I also don't use Metamorphosis paired with Oculus because I like to play with the Teleport enchant. So it's really just up to you how you actually want to fit in Infection. I would say for most people, you can either just swap out Undying or Domination, and that will probably be your best bet. Or if you are using the build that I posted, which is with Teleport Enchant and taking advantage of Sanguine Brace rather than Metamorphosis, then for easier stuff, you can take Sanguine Brace off. And for T100s, I guess just take Domination off, because getting Infection is 15% increased damage all the time, whereas Domination is just 24%, but conditional on them being stunned, right? And bosses is where you want a lot of your damage. So I've covered 3 elements so far, lightning, poison, as well as fire. You could also use the firebolt enchant if you're using the Metamorphosis plus Oculus version of the build and not using teleport enchant, but you don't really need to use any amount of fire damage, because anytime that you just deal damage, you're going to be refreshing the stacks. As you can see, I did my fire damage here, and the bonus is up, and then anytime I just deal any amount of other damage, it's going to reset the bonus, so I don't have to worry about like this bonus going away. As long as I make sure to just run into enemies with Flame Shield, I'll pretty much permanently have the buff, unless I'm like running from pack to pack, but by then my Flame Shield will probably be off cooldown anyways. The only element that I haven't covered so far is Frost. There's multiple different ways that you can proc this. I think the easiest and less cumbersome version is to just use Ice Blades. Ice Blades is pretty worthless, but you don't have any other skills that really matter with this build anyway, so putting Ice Blades on, like, whatever. You can also decide to use Blizzard if you want to not have to spend any skill points. Blizzard just, I don't know, a little bit more annoying. Ice Blades is nice because it kind of just follows you around. It just does the damage passively, so you can proc it like before you go into the boss fight or before you're fighting mobs. Whereas if you wanted to use Blizzard, you'd have to actually hit an enemy with it manually, and it does cost mana, so it's a little bit more annoying. You could also use Frostbolt if you want, but again, you have to hit an enemy with that manually. Frostbolt wouldn't cost any skill points because you have to put 2 points into something random up here anyway, so you could slam it into Frostbolt. Also, Blizzard is free because you're getting ranks to mastery skills on your amulet, so you don't have to put any skill points there, or you could just put 1 point into Ice Blades if you want. Obviously, I have Harlequin's Crest, so I can kind of save the skill point and just do whatever I want, but it doesn't really matter, like, you lose, I don't know, Frost Nova or something, but, like, who really gives a shit, right? It doesn't really matter. So that is the best way to take advantage of it. In terms of which legendary you want to replace to be able to put Tal Rasha on, obviously you want to keep your recharging loop because this is a massive source of your mana for the build. So what I decided to lose was the Aspect of Control, which is 35% increased damage against enemies that are frozen, stunned, or immobilized. We are stunning constantly as a result of using the Teleport enchant. However, having just more permanent damage up is probably better. Alternatively, if you like having Aspect of Control for really big numbers, you could decide to swap off of Conceited Aspect because it is relatively low value, but honestly, I like the way that this is set up. Also, you could get rid of Elementals if you want, but permanently I like this version of having as much damage as humanly possible, well-rounded, versatile, having the damage up all the time, and not having as much conditional damage, which is why it's good to kind of you swap out the control glyph, or not control glyph, you swap out Aspect of Control and Domination, and then your damage is pretty much active all the time, and you made up for all that damage with Tal Rasha by itself, which is really good. So when it comes to, I'll just give you guys a short little demonstration of how you'd want to approach a boss fight. So you would pop Ice Blades first, and then you would Unstable Currents, walk into the mob with Flame Shield. Flame Shield does give you Unstoppable, so that will proc your Tibalt's Will, and then you can just spam your Ball Lightning, and then you'll have all of your stacks up. So Ice Blades, Unstable Currents, Flame Shield, and then you just spam the ever-living crap out of Ball Lightning, and then teleport on cooldown just to get the Unstoppable, and then that's pretty much it. And as you can see, we can permanently have the damage buff up pretty much all the time, just because anytime you deal damage, it's going to reset it, so that's really nice. Look at all the numbers on the screen. On a normal mob, I'm able to get up to 1 million with all the damage increases with full damage setup, which is pretty good. Saw a couple millies in there, and that's really nice. And one of the reasons I'm able to do up to 1 million damage is because of a bug. There's actually 2 bugs with the capstones that I want to go over with you guys real quickly. So one of them is that the damage increase from Veer's Mastery does not actually work. Would like Blizzard to fix this. The Veer's Mastery close enemies take 15% increased multiplicative damage, but that gets buffed by 25%, so it'd be about 19%. This doesn't work. Tested it a ton. Can show you guys real quickly if you're interested. And then the other bug is that Essu's Ferocity works for not only fire critical strike damage, but all damage, and you can proc this by simply just dealing damage to a boss or killing any enemy with a critical strike, which you will constantly be critting with Ball Lightning. So not only does this not work if you were using it for a damage increase, but this does work when it shouldn't work. So we have 2 bugs going on. I'll try to demonstrate that real quickly for you guys if you're interested. So it's a little bit hard. Trust me, I tested this quite a bit here. It's a little bit hard to accurately demonstrate it, but I'll just give you guys a very quick demonstration. So right now I don't have anything spec'd, and if I just slam out a few Ball Lightnings, you'll see around the top end is around 160k or so. I'm not trying to spam a bunch and get a bunch of buffs rolling, but as you can see, the top end is around 160k or so, right? So in theory, I'd put on Veer's Mastery, and then the top end should go up by about 20%, so maybe around 200k or so, but as you can see, the damage range is relatively the same. The top end is still going to be around 160. You're not seeing a massive damage increase like you should see if you're getting a 19-20% damage increase there. Now, if I just put on Essu's Ferocity, this guy's an elite, so it actually won't proc, so I have to spawn a boss, but it would normally proc if you're doing Nightmare Dungeons, because you just have to kill an enemy with a crit, but if you're fighting a boss, it's going to automatically proc. So as you can see, I get the proc, increased fire critical hit damage, and then if I just spam a few Ball Lightnings, you can pretty easily see that the top end goes up, I guess I need to show it again because the boss training dummy seems to take less damage. But with it on, I'm doing around relatively what I was doing before, like around 150, 160 or so on the boss training dummy. I had to show it on the boss because Estus does not work if it is not on the boss. But if I take it off, I'm doing like on average, 80 is the low end, around like 120, 130 is like the high end, right? As you can see, the damage is not great. And then if I put Estus back on, goes up to 160 is the high end, 140, 150, 160. Trust me, I've tested this quite a bit. It's difficult to demonstrate, especially with something like Ball Lightning. But, you could just test it for yourself and go back and forth and just look at the highest number that you see on your screen. And you'll very, very easily be able to tell, hey, Estus Ferocity is giving me a massive damage increase of 25%. And Veer's Mastery does not. One thing a lot of people mentioned is why don't you use the legendary that increases your attack speed when you have the Estus Ferocity buff up. The reason for this is that, at least as far as I'm aware, the damage benefit out of the attack speed modifier that you get from Ball Lightning is capped at 40% attack speed. So getting any additional attack speed past 40% does not scale the damage rate of Ball Lightning. All it does is just increase your actual attack speed animation, which is a damage increase, but it is not one that is significant enough, in my opinion, to use that legendary over something like Elementalist. Feel free to try it out yourself, though. I did try it out a pretty good bit, and I could not notice an increase in how fast I was able to kill stuff, but the additional like 60% or whatever attack speed does feel pretty nice. And if you wanted to like ditch Ravenous for whatever reason or something like that, that would be a way to do it. I guess in in Eternal Realm, you could use Accelerating, or you could use the Estus Ferocity Legendary, and that would be a pretty good way to mitigate losing Ravenous whenever we do end up losing this. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, feel free to drop a like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. This is a fantastic addition, and I'm pretty sure for the foreseeable future, this will be best in slot for pretty much every build. It also has the added benefit of having resistance to all elements twice, which makes it even easier to cap out all your resistances without even having to spec into it. Blizzard, if you're watching, please fix this. I would like to use Veer's Mastery for the survivability benefits, and this just should not work. Like, this is just bugged. I wonder how long this has been bugged. The game's been out for however long, and I guess nobody bothered to test it, or maybe it recently got busted. I don't know. I was just trying to test, the legendary, and then I noticed I was getting more damage out of this, and then I noticed that this wasn't giving me damage. I was like, what the hell's going on? So please fix this, Blizzard. Would appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.